Have you ever felt like you were born at the wrong time? Not too early, not too late, just somewhere in the middle where nothing seems to fully belong to you. That strange feeling is very common for people who grew up during the late 80s and early 90s. When older generations talk about their past, their stories feel slightly distant. But when younger generations describe their world, it also doesn't completely feel like yours. It's like standing between two eras, watching both sides move forward while you remain somewhere in the middle. People often try to categorize generations. Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, labels that supposedly define how people grew up, what they experienced, and how they think. But for many who were born near the end of the 80s or early 90s, those labels never fully make sense. You're not quite part of the generation that grew up without the internet. Yet you also weren't raised completely inside the digital world. You experienced both realities. Your childhood belonged to a slower world, a time when afternoons felt endless and the outside world was where most adventures happened. You remember days when entertainment wasn't instantly available at the press of a button. If your favorite show aired once a week, you watched it then or you missed it. There was no replay waiting online. Weekends felt different back then. Saturday mornings were quiet until the television came on. Bright animated shows filled the room while you sat close to the screen with a bowl of cereal. When the cartoons ended, the house became quiet again. That usually meant one thing: it was time to go outside. Bikes, sidewalks, empty fields, and neighborhood friends became the real playground. If you wanted to see someone, you didn't send a message. You simply rode over to their house and knocked on the door. Sometimes their parents answered. Sometimes you had to wait awkwardly while they called your friend from another room. But eventually they came outside, and the day began. Hours could pass without anyone knowing exactly where you were. Not because anyone was careless, but because that level of freedom was normal. The only real rule was simple: be home before the streetlights came on. Those small moments quietly taught independence. You learned how to entertain yourself without constant stimulation. If you were bored, you invented something to do. Games were created from imagination rather than downloaded from an app. Conflicts between friends were solved face to face instead of through group messages. Silence existed, and in that silence, creativity had room to grow. Then, while you were still growing up, something huge began to change. The internet arrived. At first, it felt strange and slow. Connecting meant hearing the unforgettable noise of dial-up modems. Pages loaded one piece at a time, sometimes taking minutes just to display a single image. Yet even with those limitations, it felt magical. Suddenly there was a new place where people could talk, explore, and share ideas. Email addresses appeared. Chat rooms became popular. Screen names replaced real names for a while, and everyone experimented with who they wanted to be online. It was the beginning of something that would eventually transform everything. As the years passed, technology moved faster and faster. Websites evolved into social platforms. Profiles became digital identities. Personal pages could be customized with music, colors, and backgrounds that reflected personality. For many people, this was their first experience shaping how others saw them online. But that phase didn't last long. Soon cleaner platforms appeared. Simpler designs, fewer personal touches. Social media became more structured, more public, and more permanent. Smartphones eventually placed the entire internet into everyone's pocket. By the time adulthood arrived, the world looked completely different from the one you remembered as a child. Communication changed. Privacy changed. Even friendships began to shift toward online spaces. For people who grew up during that transition, this created an unusual kind of perspective. You understand technology well enough to navigate it comfortably, but you also remember what life felt like before it became unavoidable. You know what it feels like to disappear for a while without being tracked by notifications, messages, or location updates. That memory changes how you see the modern world. Many younger people never experience that contrast. For them, constant connectivity is simply normal. But for those who lived through both stages, the difference is impossible to ignore. There is often a quiet tension between convenience and exhaustion. Technology makes communication easier than ever before. Yet it also demands attention all the time. Notifications, updates, and endless streams of information can become overwhelming. Still, adaptation became necessary. Careers required learning new tools. Social circles expanded online. Digital platforms became part of daily routines, whether people enjoyed them or not. At the same time, economic realities added another challenge. Many individuals who entered adulthood in the late 2000s found themselves stepping into an unstable job market. Opportunities were limited, competition was intense, and financial stability took longer to achieve than previous generations expected. The path that once seemed predictable suddenly felt uncertain. Hard work no longer guaranteed the outcomes people were promised growing up. Education didn't always translate into immediate career success. Housing prices climbed faster than incomes. The traditional milestones of adulthood moved further away. For some, this created frustration. For others, it created resilience. Adapting became the defining skill of that generation. Learning new technology, navigating economic changes, and balancing to different cultural eras required flexibility. People who experienced that transition often became bridges between older and younger perspectives. They can explain new technology to someone unfamiliar with it, while also understanding the nostalgia others feel for simpler times. That ability to see both sides is rare. It comes from living through a period when the world changed faster than anyone expected. So if you sometimes feel like you belong to two different timelines, you're not imagining it. Your experiences were shaped by a moment in history when everyday life shifted dramatically. And maybe that unusual position isn't a weakness. Maybe it's perspective, because people who have seen both worlds understand something important. Progress always comes with trade-offs, and remembering the past can help us navigate the future. If this story sounds familiar, you might be part of that in-between generation. And if you are, you're definitely not the only one.